As we approach the end of the year, there is a huge influx of visitors to South Africa's coastal areas. Today, we focus on the issues that lifesavers and emergency services have to contend with to keep us safe and make sure we all get to see the new year. A reminder that this is a live program, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial is 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. This is Question Time. My guest today, James Rees, is the spokesperson of the South African Life Saving Association, who is joining us from our Durban studios. Richard Mulder is a clinical manager of Netcare 911. Gentlemen, welcome to Question Time. Let me welcome you both. But let me start with you, Rich. How would you describe the state of emergency services this festive season?
I think we're doing quite well. Obviously, the festive season sees an influx of emergency calls across the board. But thus far, we've been able to cope quite adequately with that influx.
And perhaps, what are the most common emergencies that you have to deal with at this time?
Sure. Obviously, the big one that you mentioned a bit earlier, we've got a big influx of drownings over this time of year. They're both at the beaches as well as at the pools and in the home. We see a fair amount of motor vehicle related incidents, often fueled similarly to the drownings by intoxication, and with the motor vehicle side, speed as well. And then we see some other things that some people might not always consider, such as a higher rate of suicide and depression, as well as the sunburn and other burns associated with the time around the fire, around the braai, in the festive sort of spirit.
So, you've just mentioned something which we never thought as part of what you have to be dealing with: suicide callers. What is this? People call you and say, "I want to commit suicide," or what?
So unfortunately, we see both sides of that coin this time of the year. We see both the calls for help as well as those that have attempted to actually commit suicide. There is quite a significant association between the festive season and the holiday periods and depression and the increase in attempted suicide and calls for help.
What are the reasons?
Look, there are quite a few different reasons. Loneliness, people that don't have loved ones around them over the festive period, and a number of other psychologically related matters.
But would somebody just kill himself or herself just because people have gone to see their families?
Unfortunately, we are sometimes faced with that.
Really? Have you managed to do an assessment of what type of people these are? Maybe we're working with some here, we do not know that people are depressed, they want to be home instead.
No, depression is a very complicated illness, and it's one that has some warning signs, but also many that aren't. That's warning signs that go unnoticed, are quite difficult to pick up on. So obviously people with underlying conditions, previous examples of that kind of behavior, suicide and attempted suicide, those kind of things, obviously at high risk over this time of year.
Okay.
But also the withdrawn individuals or people that aren't potentially as involved in the activities as one might assume. One can't say for sure those are signs, but those are some of the potential warning signs that one can look out for.
And the drowning subject, who is drowning?
So unfortunately, we're in the festive season, the festivities are rife for this time of year. We do see a very large number of children that unfortunately are involved in these incidents. And the situation there is that especially with young children, they really cannot be unattended for any period of time. The major risk there is if they're not being watched, falling into a pool in particular, or as your colleague that you mentioned, the life-saving gentleman, we'll speak about a bit later, at the beaches, which are quite popular this time of year. Especially if you're not from that kind of area, are easily swept out to sea, and that becomes a very difficult situation very quickly.
Yes. Well, I'm going to ask you a controversial question, but this is question time, so we normally ask those questions which people are afraid to ask. So who is drowning here? Is it your black folks or?
Drownings occur across all demographics. Whether it's at the ocean side, whether it's in the home, there really is no differentiator when it comes to drowning. Drowning is an indiscriminate process. Anyone can drown in any degree of water.
Yes.
There's an old adage, one can drown in a teaspoon of water. That is very true. So it doesn't need to be a massive pool. It can be a bucket, it can be a bath, it can be any kind of water source. That's unfortunate. So we see it right across the board.
Yeah.
All across all demographic population groups.
Speeding?
Look, it is one of those things this time of year. People indulge in festivities. There's alcohol generally involved. A slight degree of disregard for many of our road rules.
Yes.
And when we do see the unfortunate consequences of those actions, it is quite a big thing.
But now, are people who are speeding drunk?
One can't associate the two with one another as a rule. They do go hand in glove. Impaired judgment can certainly be associated with increases in speed and reckless behavior. But for me to say to you now that every speeding person is drunk and every drunk person speeds, that's not an assumption that I can make.
Yes. And perhaps, I mean, somebody is sitting at home there watching and saying, but how serious is this? These speeding carnages. Yes, we've had reports and all that, but perhaps you guys see the consequences of speeding on a day-to-day basis. What's the worst that you have ever had to come across?
Well, unfortunately, we see many incidents with potentially unroadworthy vehicles moving at high speed, people that aren't restrained within those vehicles, children that aren't restrained within those vehicles. And as speed increases, the passenger inside the vehicle is moving at the same speed as the vehicle. And one has to think about that. So if that vehicle comes to an abrupt halt, a stop, that person, if they're not restrained adequately, will continue to move at that speed and potentially is then also flung out of the vehicle at that speed. And I think, without going into any graphic detail, one can imagine what happens to the person hitting the ground at 120 or more kilometers an hour.
Do you paramedics have some form of support? Because, I mean, if you're working under these circumstances on a daily basis, this should take a toll on your psychology.
No, it certainly does, and support networks, even within our structures, are very important. We do have various debriefing mechanisms, debriefing teams, counsellors, and those kind of things at our disposal for our internal our staff and colleagues. The relationship between emergency services is a very close-knit one,
yes.
Almost like a family, if you will. And there is the support from like-minded individuals who are exposed to the similar kind of thing.
Okay.
And through discussion and debriefing in that form, there is a big degree to which we deal with those difficult situations.
And once you've arrived on a scene, let's say an accident, crash or something like that, once you take out the foil, does it mean it's the end?
Look, I think that the foil sometimes gets a bad reputation.
It is. It's very notorious. You know, once we see the foil, we know that, you know what, Joanna 14. So
the foil itself is actually a rescue blanket, if you will. It's a heat-saving tool that if someone is cold and hypothermic, can be used in association with other blankets to reflect the body's warmth back to the person. I think we often see it utilized in the fashion that you are mentioning, because it is a means to cover a body from the public eye. So I think sometimes that foil gets a bad reputation. It does not always mean that someone has passed away. It can also just be used to warm someone.
But why don't you want people to see dead bodies?
You know, there is a degree to which it is not, as you mentioned, we take a toll on ourselves psychologically and the rest of it, being exposed to that kind of thing. And that's not something one generally wants to expose to the population as a whole. I hear where you're coming from. I think your question is probably, may that not be a deterrent?
Yes.
And certainly it might be a deterrent, but one has to consider that it's an indiscriminate viewing then of someone's loved one, a family member. You know, that's not something that I think if we spoke about our family members, we'd want the general public to see. Sure. As well as the fact that, you know, you might have children on a road driving past, and one doesn't know what that might impact them in terms of their development and psychologically. It's quite a hair-raising thing sometimes.
We'll talk about the patterns, behavioral patterns of drivers and victims, I guess. A reminder that you can call us and air your views. The number 08911042110. What do you want to find out from the paramedics? Netcare, 911, they are here. Maybe you were once in an accident and they came there and asked you if you've got medical aid and you said no and they left you. This is question time.
It's that time of the year again where good friends and families come together to celebrate with love. It's Christmas time. Christmas time. It's Christmas time. From the SABC News family to yours. Have a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. A reminder that you can call us and air your views on the number 089-1104-210. Now, Richard Mulder, you represent Netcan 911. Is it true that you don't take patients who do not have medical aid?
No, that's not true at all. The reality is that any life-threatening emergency will be treated and transported. That's from an ethical and from a moral point of view, that is the only way we can conduct ourselves.
So you do not ask for people's medical aids when you rescue them?
No, it's important to know where to transport any particular patient, and there is a difference based on if you are or are not on a medical aid. Obviously there are private facilities, there are government facilities that are obviously of various different locations, and wherever those are, that's obviously just a tool to assist us to know where to transport which patient.
But do you have instances where you've had to leave people because they don't have medical aid?
No, never.
Okay, so this is just a rumor.
I can't speak for any other services, but for Netcare 911, that is correct, yes.
Okay, but do you keep records of people that you have rescued who are not on medical aid?
We keep records of all patients we transport, correct.
Do you know, or perhaps you may not have the details here, but do you know in terms of numbers? How?
No, unfortunately, I don't have that information with me.
Okay. How many people do you rescue per day? Call-outs and all that?
Again, I don't have that kind of information with me, unfortunately.
Okay. The numbers to dial, if you've got a question or a comment to make, will be on your screen right now, and indeed we'll be taking your calls. Let's talk about the festive season's emergency requirements and all that. What are some of the tips that you would give to people who are either traveling or just at home having or hosting, their not ordinary, but social gatherings, families, and all that?
I think vigilance is really the important one. There is obviously being aware of what's going on around one. If one has, in particular, young children and that kind of thing, like I mentioned before, around a pool, around a fire, that kind of thing, is to really keep a close eye on them and make sure that they don't get anywhere they shouldn't be. Beyond that, excuse me. Beyond that, preparedness is obviously the key element to all of these things. Having something small like some plasters or bandages, a first aid kit in the home, or just being aware of those emergency numbers, as you've mentioned, in order to get hold of the professionals if that is required. That mindset of it's a festive season, but we are still cautious and we are still thinking about what might happen is obviously very important.
Okay, Khotso, you're in Pelindaba.
So how are you?
I'm well, thanks for the call.
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. I need to congratulate the EMS with the good job they are doing all over South Africa, especially with the limited number of them.
Okay.
Yeah, one more thing. With the private EMS, private ambulance department.
Yes.
You will find that just for example, it's a mass incident whereby it's a taxi or it's a bus.
Yes.
Yes. Now when they get there, you find that they are only tackling patients who have medical aid, and they disregard those who are injured but don't have medical aid. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Then when the public or the government EMS gets there, or provincial EMS gets there, then they just point to them, if there's 1, 2, 3, 4 patients that are there, then themselves, they take the patient away, the one with the medical aid.
Oh.
I was a student doing practicals in the EMS system, I know. But remember, when you're a student, it's difficult to say those things out because of you might be victimized at school. You understand?
Yes. Okay, Khotso, thank you very much in Peli there. But well, like you're saying, congratulations. It would appear that you are doing a good job.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Yes.
Certainly appreciate that.
Is there something that we do not know which you think if we knew would make your job easier?
I think the one overriding factor is when contacting emergency services is to give accurate information as to where you are. People often get quite upset with us when contacting us, when we ask all these questions about where are you, what is your name, what is your phone number. The reason for that is in the event that the telephone line is disconnected, that we can actually get back to you, or we can get to you if we have the address. So that's the critical information. Before we even ask questions about the medical condition of the patient, the key information is that where are the people and what are the phone numbers in case we lose contact with them. And that's probably the biggest, most important thing, especially in this festive season. When people are traveling, they might not be at home. It's just to know where they are as well. That would greatly assist emergency services in getting to people in the timeliest fashion.
Well, you know, in some townships you find people remove street names and all that. Does it not make your job difficult?
It certainly adds to the challenge. There's no doubt about that. Thankfully, with various landmarks and things, one can still find the right place, but obviously it does take a little bit longer. So in the interest of saving time, obviously we'd prefer to have accurate streets and those kind of things if possible.
Yes. And fire, you know, in Cape Town, this season is, we know that there will be fires in Cape Town, informal settlements, and I mean, informal settlements are quite prone to this type of tragedies. How do we prevent those?
So I think obviously the origin of the fire is quite important to look at there. Is it a gas stove? Is it a wood fire? Is it what kind of fire is it? You know, with or paraffin lamp for that matter. With the open heat source or open flame, it's always crucial to make sure those things are well secured and out of reach of children or people that can knock it over by accident. You know, those are obviously the key things. A torch or fire on a low table is easily knocked over, and once it goes over with those combustible materials in the environment, the fire spreads very, very rapidly. So really, again, it is being very aware of what is around a person and being vigilant as to not accidentally knocking into these kind of things. Those are really the big ones.
Now, as we're going towards the 31st of December, what is going to be your common call-out? So
over the end of the year period, the festivities obviously take a big toll on people in general. There's a lot of alcohol use and drinking, and unfortunately with that comes a degree of drinking and driving, so the motor vehicle accidents as such that increases somewhat. We do also from time to time see the burns and that kind of thing from the fires, potentially from fireworks as well as other less fortunate sort of alcohol related situations.
Okay, let's go to Mtata. I'm not sure who we have in Mtata. Welcome.
Hello, good everybody.
Pila kondo ukon?
I'm God, and I'm good to know Mr. Ngaloshe Mtata.
Okay, ngozi kakhulu tata.
Sifuna uqonda lo netcare 911 uphi useGauteng eDurban naseKapa na ngoba simazi kwelicala lethu.
Awukho engangelizwe tata.
Andikho sengangelizwe lapha eVichtsville on the way to Qunu.
Oh, okay. All right, masimbuze ke uzasixelela uba
Ngaloshe not umdlalose.
Oh, nongalose.
Ngaloshe.
Oh, Ngalose. Okay, thank you very much, Tata. Usixolele ke. He's calling from Umtata, and he's saying, where are you? Are you only in the big cities and towns? Because they cannot see any trace of you in Umtata.
We are distributed throughout the country, largely in the urban centres, is correct, but we do have branches in the Eastern Cape. Umtata, not as such, but in the surrounding areas, as you say, the larger urban centres from which we dispatch our resources.
Okay. Are you linked to your health facilities only?
No, we transport patients to any health facility, so whether it's private or government is irrespective. Most of our operations run from our hospitals, purely based on that's where we have facilities for our crew and that to rest and have their vehicles based.
Okay. Yeah. Let's look at, like I was saying, it will be the 31st of December. A lot of fire works illegally in other instances. And then there's this aspect of animals as well. Do you also do animal call-outs?
So we do get called from time to time. Unfortunately, look, we're not trained veterinarians or that kind of animal side of things. That sometimes we come across as a side of assisting people, but our primary focus is obviously is looking after human life.
All right. Freeman, you are around Gauteng.
Yes, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks for the call.
Good, thanks. And how is Richard doing?
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Okay, I can ask a question, Richard?
Yes, sir.
When like I'm in an accident, for example, and maybe I'm driving alone, and then how do you determine, and I can't speak at that time, how will you know whether I have a medical aid or not, or which hospital to take me to, for example?
Okay. Thank you for the question. If a person is involved in a motor vehicle accident or any kind of incident and is unable to let us know whether they're on a medical aid or not, we will take that person to the most appropriate hospital that is the nearest hospital. So if there's a serious injury to that degree, there are certain major hospitals to use Gauteng as the example, and in the Gauteng space, which is where we'll transport the patient. If it then turns out later that they would like to move somewhere else, that is then facilitated afterwards. But the first priority is getting them to an appropriate hospital to be stabilized prior to any other kind of process being undertaken.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the dogs and cats. On the 31st, I mean, there are some dogs that are more covered than a lot of black people, you know. They have insurance and medical aids and all that. You do not facilitate
No,
those.
we don't.
You only deal with human life.
Human life, yes.
Okay. And injuries on the 31st, probably an increase, stab wounds and gunshots as well.
Sure, there is obviously an elevated degree of interpersonal violence, whichever form that takes. I can't say to you now one is more than the other, but there is an elevated level of interpersonal violence when alcohol is involved and that kind of thing. So in association with the motor vehicle collisions, the burns we spoke about briefly, yes, sometimes the drownings, there is also a degree to which there is an elevation in the assaults and that kind of thing. And
Hillbrow, do you have a strategy for Hillbrow?
So Hillbrow has calmed down quite a lot over the years. It's not quite as wild as it was. We actually we treat the area as we do any other, in that when a call comes through for that area, we send our resources to assist in that area. There's I think the days of armoured ambulances and that kind of thing are a thing of the past. It's no different from any other suburb in that space.
Okay, and perhaps finally, overdosage, whether intentionally or accidentally, how can people treat those?
So with any kind of overdose, it's quite a serious thing, whether it's accidental or intentional. And your first port of call really is to contact the emergency services. That it is important to get that underway as soon as possible, so that we can arrive as soon as possible to assist with the matter. Beyond that, the big concern is often that the patient stops breathing, or has something that gets stuck in their airway and cannot breathe. Yes. So to turn them on their side is always a good place to start, while you wait for the assistance of emergency services.
Okay. Well, Richard, thank you very much for the time, and we wish you all the best.
And the same to you and your listeners and your viewers.
Yep, thank you. Right, that was question time for today. Take care of yourself, as you may have had the tips and all that. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. From me and the crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.